Hi, my name is Charlie Lesky, and I will be doing my author discussion on Barack Obama. Barack Obama was born on August 4th, 1961 in Hawaii to a white woman from Kansas and an African American man from Kenya. He attended Occidental College in Los Angeles for the first 2 years of his undergrad and then transferred to Columbia, where he graduated with a bachelor's in political science to then graduate magna cum laude from Harvard Law. He later taught at the University of Chicago Law, while he also served on the Illinois State Senate. During his presidency, he accomplished many things, including ending the war in Iraq in 2009. He won a Nobel Peace Prize, also in 2009. In 2012, he expressed his acceptance for marriage equality. He established Obamacare and was reelected by a margin of over 5 million people against his opponent, Mitt Romney. Throughout the reading, I viewed the themes hypocritical racism, discrimination, and hope as the most prominent. The theme hypocritical racism was shown throughout both Obama's former pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, as well as Obama's own grandmother. According to the reading, Reverend Jeremiah Wright not only strengthened the racial divide, but degraded the nation in their ability to protect and serve as a whole through racial comments. Although the pastor helped Obama establish his faith, officiated his wedding, baptized his children, and spoke passionately about the importance of helping and loving one another, he also spoke of America's inability to function racially or effectively, undermining the country, its citizens of color, and the African American president in power. The theme is also shown through Obama's grandmother, who loved Obama more than anything and would do anything for him, but still stated she was afraid of any black man that passed her on the street. Another theme I viewed as very prominent was discrimination. Even though Barack Obama was voted to be the 44th president of the United States, he still faced discrimination. Commenters deemed him either too black or not black enough to be president. There is also another case where critics claim that liberals are attempting to create a novelty out of Obama's presidency through the supposed affirmative action of his election. Throughout all the hate and discrimination Barack Obama faced throughout his life and his presidency, he still had hope that the American people had it in them to make a change. That's why I view hope and perseverance as another very important theme throughout the reading. Hope and perseverance is seen through his Hope campaign slogan that strive for both a better America and an end to discrimination, as well as his speech, A More Perfect Union. After reading A More Perfect Union, I was inspired by his ability to put the hate behind him and continue to hope and strive for a better future. In his speech, he states, "We may have different stories, but we hold common hopes, that we may not look the same and we may not have come from the same place, but we all want to move in the same direction, towards a better future for our children and our grandchildren." This belief comes from unyielding faith in decency and generosity of the American people. Even after experiencing personal discrimination against his race, Obama is still confident that the country can overcome its hate.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. 221 years ago, in a hall that still stands across the street, a group of men gathered and with these simple words launched America's improbable experiment in democracy. Farmers and scholars, statesmen and patriots who had traveled across the ocean to escape tyranny and persecution finally made real their Declaration of Independence at a Philadelphia convention that lasted through the spring of 1787. The document they produced was eventually signed, but ultimately unfinished. It was stained by this nation's original sin of slavery, a question that divided the colonies and brought the convention to a stalemate until the founders chose to allow the slave trade to continue for at least 20 more years and to leave any final resolution to future generations. Of course, the answer to the slavery question was already embedded within our Constitution, a Constitution that had at its very core the ideal of equal citizenship under the law, a Constitution that promised its people liberty and justice, and a union that could be and should be perfected over time. And yet words on a parchment would not be enough to deliver slaves from bondage or provide men and women of every color and creed their full rights and obligations as citizens of the United States. What would be needed were Americans in successive generations who were willing to do their part through protests and struggles on the streets and in the courts, through a civil war and civil disobedience, and always at great risk, to narrow that gap between the promise of our ideals and the reality of their time. This was one of the tasks we set forth at the beginning of this presidential campaign, to continue the long march of those who came before us, a march for a more just, more equal, more free, more caring, and more prosperous America. I chose to run for president at this moment in history because I believe deeply that we cannot solve the challenges of our time unless we solve them together, unless we perfect our union by understanding that we may have different stories, but we hold common hopes, that we may not look the same and may not have come from the same place, but we all want to move in the same direction towards a better future for our children and our grandchildren.
Throughout the reading, I was able to reflect on the impressive and turbulent life of our 44th President, Barack Obama. From his multicultural childhood to his academically esteemed college and law career to his triumphant two-term presidency, Obama was able to make historic strides and overcome challenging racial stereotypes. Currently supporting the campaigns of several liberal politicians, Obama has kept himself busy. Even after his time in office, the former president is continuing to serve the citizens of the country he loves so much, despite not always receiving the same respect. Here's my reference page, and thank you so much for listening.